Every year, America throws itself a birthday party. This year is different. This year, the party has been 250 years in the making. 50 states, 340 million people, one night. But this film isn't really about the fireworks. It's about a road. A road that was born 100 years ago in a telegram sent from a street corner in Springfield, Missouri. 2 birthdays, one summer, and a question worth the next 20 minutes of your time. What exactly are we celebrating? To understand the road, you have to understand that it's far older than its number. Long before the pavement, the Osage moved through these hills on footpaths worn through centuries of travel. In 1837, Missouri authorized a dirt track from St. Louis to Springfield. They called it simply the Springfield Road. Stagecoaches were running by the 1840s. Then in 1857, the federal government handed a man named John Butterfield a contract to carry the mail overland. A year later, crews strung telegraph wire along the route, and the Springfield Road picked up a new name, the Wire Road. When the Civil War came, that wire and the road carried armies. 10 miles southwest of town, at a creek called Wilson's, the first major battle west of the Mississippi turned these fields red in August of 1861. After the war, the railroads took over, and the old roads went to ruin. Then came the automobile. By 1911, there were 16,000 cars in Missouri, and almost nowhere decent to drive them. So in 1920, Missourians voted $60 million to lift their state out of the mud. The stage was set. All the road needed now was a name. 1925. Washington decides that America's tangle of auto trails needs order, a national system. Even numbers running east and west, odd numbers running north and south. The great transcontinental routes, the important ones, would end in zero. The road from Chicago to Los Angeles was penciled in as Route 60. Then the governor of Kentucky noticed that no one, or not one of the zeros, touched his state, and he wanted one. Washington blinked, Kentucky got 60, and the Chicago to Los Angeles road was demoted to 62. Two men refused to accept it. Cyrus Avery of Oklahoma, they later call him the father of Route 66, and Missouri's chief highway engineer. They dug in, the fight dragged on, and somebody noticed a number sitting unclaimed on the list, 2 sixes. Simple, symmetrical, it rolled off the tongue. On April 30th, 1926, from the Colonial Hotel, a hotel that stood on this very corner in downtown Springfield, a telegram went out to Washington. We will accept 66. On November 11th of that year, the Secretary of Agriculture signed off. U.S. Highway 66 was born, on paper in Washington, but in spirit right here. A year later, boosters formed an association to sell the world on their road. Its first president was a Springfield attorney named John T. Woodruff. They billed it as the shortest, best, most scenic route from Chicago to the Pacific. They gave it a slogan that stuck, the Main Street of America. 2,400 miles, 8 states, 3 time zones. And it all started with the telegram. At first, much of it wasn't even paved. It took until 1938 to finish the whole thing end to end. And when the 1930s arrived, dust came with it. Drought and wind turned the southern plains into a wasteland. Farms that had fed families for generations simply blew away. And so the families moved 200,000 and more bound for California. Mattresses tied to the roof, children in the truck of a bed, everything else left behind. Nearly all of them took the same road. In 1939, John Steinbeck put their journey into a novel, The Grapes of Wrath, and gave Highway 66 the name that it would carry, the Mother Road. 2 years later, war came. 66 carried soldiers and steel, convoys of truck running day and night here in the Ozarks. The road delivered recruits to a brand new armory post in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and carried them off to Europe and the Pacific. When the soldiers came home, they came home restless. They had cars now, paychecks, 2 weeks of vacation, and a country to see. And Route 66 became the greatest road trip on earth. Motor courts with neon out front, filling stations like this one, a Sinclair, built in 1930, still standing out in Paris Springs, diners, curio shops, trading posts, whole towns living off the traffic. Springfield legend says a burger stand on this road would cut the first drive-up window in America, so you never had to leave the car. In 1946, a singer-songwriter, Bobby Troup, drove the route and turned the highway into a hit record. Nat King Cole took it up to the charts, and the road had its anthem. And in 1956, a 21-year-old named Elvis Presley passed through town and spent the night at a motor court on the old road, room 409. You can still book it. For 30 years, when America dreamed of the open road, it dreamed in 2 lanes, heading west. Here's the irony. The very same year Elvis slept on 66, President Eisenhower signed the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956. Ike had crossed the country with an army convoy back in 1919. It took him 2 months. Later in Germany, he saw the Autobahn, and he came home convinced that America needed superhighways. He was right, and it killed the Mother Road. Mile by mile, 5 new interstates swallowed her traffic. Towns that lived on through travelers watched it vanish. An exit ramp 2 miles away might as well have been an ocean. The last stretch was bypassed in 1984. The next year, the government erased the number from the map entirely. Officially, US 66 ceased to exist. Missouri's own Mark Twain once had to remind the newspapers that the report of his death had been greatly exaggerated. The same, it turns out, was true of the road. People refused to let her go. They kept the neon humming. They restored the filling stations. They fought for the signs. In 1990, Missouri passed a law to mark the historic route, and the first historic 66 sign in the state went up at Kearney and Glenstone in Springfield. There are more than 350 of them now, border to border. The travelers came back, then travelers from everywhere, Europe, Japan, Australia, crossing oceans to drive the road their own countries wrote songs about. And this spring, 100 years after the telegram, the National Centennial Celebration begins where the road began. Network cameras on the square at dawn, a new plaza on the old hotel corner, a parade of classic cars down streets their grandfathers drove. Springfield even laid out rumble strips on the old alignment that hum a tune under your tires. 100 years old and more alive than she's been in 50. Which brings us to this weekend, July 4th, 2026, the 250th birthday of the United States of America. In New York Harbor, they're staging the largest gathering of ships in American history. Some 60 vessels from 30 nations sail against the skyline. In Philadelphia, they're burying a time capsule in Independence Mall, sealed until July 4th, 2276, a letter to the 500th birthday. And on that very same day, in the very same city where the Declaration was signed, a World Cup match, the whole planet playing in America's backyard. Monday night, The United States takes the field again, winners this week, now chasing a quarterfinal at home in the country's 250th year. And out here, the Ozarks do what the Ozarks do best. A free concert on the landing at Branson, thousands packed along the boardwalk, and after dark, a barge out on Lake Tinicomo lit the sky on fire. You could stand in that crowd and feel it. Something you can't quite name. No politics. Nobody down there was arguing. Just gratitude. And a little wonder that the whole improbable thing has lasted 250 years. But if you want to know what 250 years actually feels like, turn off the highway. South and east of the old road lies 1.5 million acres of oak and pine and hollow, the Mark Twain National Forest. It's named for a barefoot boy from a Missouri River town, Samuel Clemens. But before he was America's storyteller, Samuel Clemens piloted steamboats on the Mississippi, and on the river, when the leadsman dropped his line and found 2 fathoms of water, 12 feet deep, enough to pass safely, he would sing the depth up to the pilot house. Mark Twain. Safe water. Clemens took the river call for his name, and he spent the rest of his life sounding the depths of this country, its humor, its failings, its promise, and calling out what he had found. Tonight there's no stage out here, no stadium, no barge on the lake, just a cabin, a fire, fireflies stitching the dark, and the people you drive across the country for. Out here, the fireworks belong to the little towns beyond the tree line. The show is smaller, but it means exactly just as much. 250 years ago, in a hot room in Philadelphia, 56 men signed their names beneath a sentence no government had ever said out loud. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. They didn't fully live up to it. Neither did the generations that followed. We still fall short, but the sentence stands. And every generation of Americans has picked it up and carried it a little further down the road. 100 years ago, 2 stubborn men in a Springfield hotel gave that journey a highway. But the idea was never the parchment. It was never the pavement. It was always this. Ordinary people, free to chase the horizon and free to come home. Somewhere out in the dark, the old road is still running. Chicago to the sea, 100 years old and humming. And 250 years in, if you drop a line and sound the depths of this country, you'll still hear the old call come back. Mark Twain, safe water. Steady on, America. Happy 250th.